My name is Borgo. I'm a jewelry designer based in New York City. I went to high school in Washington, D.C., and then I started college in Richmond, Virginia at VCU. And I took Art Foundation there, and then I transferred from Richmond to the Art Institute in Denver, in Colorado. Then I went back to Atlanta, to the Art Institute in Atlanta, and then ended up at Hunter College in New York. I started off in fashion design, and then my focus turned to art history. And by the time I was finishing up my BA, I was really focused on the history of adornment. Absolutely, and more specifically than art, I think history. I think that our collection is really embedded in the history of New York, the history of American costume jewelry. I would say a lot of it has to do with history. We're constantly referencing different times in history, different moments in fashion history. My first two internships were very labor intensive, and I was running around all the time, and there was plenty to do, but I learned a lot. And they were both, I was lucky in that they were both in very creative environments. My first internship was for a costume designer named William Ivy Long, who has since done huge Broadway theater productions. I was a runner for his team, so I literally all day long ran around the city, whether it was to the garment district or to Brooklyn to pick up fabric from a fabric manufacturer, whatever it was. I did that for about a year. And then shortly thereafter, I started interning for a production designer named Joff Howell, who does sets for different environments, typically for retail spaces. I started off thinking that I was going to make clothes. So I made these really awful clothes, and thank God that the internet wasn't really in the place it is now. So you can search for them. I promise you they don't exist online. But I sold them to a few different stores below 14th Street. So I was doing that for a while, and through making clothes, I was introduced to Rebecca Weinberg, who is a stylist in New York, and she was at that time dating Patricia Field. So she introduced me to Pat, and Pat ended up using my clothes for wardrobing for Sex and the City. I then decided kind of simultaneously that I wanted to learn more about styling. So I started assisting a few different stylists and making things for them for photo shoots. And I decided to start assisting stylists, and I became this kind of go-to kid to make things for photo shoots, custom things. To be able to work with these amazing stylists, to be on these shoots, I mean, you walk onto these sets, like an Italian Vogue set, for example, and there's tables and tables and tables of accessories and jewelry from all over the world, you know, from every designer in every little pocket of the globe. And you get to see what they're creating and how they're creating and what they were inspired by looking at all of these different pieces. And it was really inspirational to me. When you're breaking into a career, when you're breaking into a new environment, a new space, you have to stay really humble. And it's not necessarily about becoming a star. It's about learning. That's why I feel everyone comes to places like New York City. You want to learn. Some of the mentors who I consider to be people that I look up to in New York are certainly the jewelers, costume jewelers who paved the way for companies like mine to exist today. People like Kenneth J. Lane, Joseph of Hollywood, all of the many jewelers who created the costume jewelry movement of the 60s and 70s. Sarah Coventry, Napier, Trifari, Coro, Eisenberg, all of those jewelers. And then I certainly have, mentors in the present day that I look up to and seek advice from. Maureen Chiquet, who's the global CEO of Chanel. She has really encouraged me and really helped not only me, but all the different members on my team to kind of get their heads around the future. Another mentor of mine who I really admire is the former CEO of Barney's, Howard Sokol, who's become really close to me. The main source of inspiration for that collection became a stylist named Carlene Cerf. We took some of those shapes and silhouettes from the jewelry that she was using at that time in her editorials. She was styling the Chanel ad campaigns. She was styling the Versace runway shows. We took all of those editorials and collected them and then identified through our mood board different silhouettes that we wanted to concentrate on that paid homage to those silhouettes from that jewelry that was created at that time. But we reinterpreted it and modernized it for a modern day woman. I hate to identify our customer because I feel like we're one of those few brands that really reach a broad demographic. We have all different women from all different walks of life. We sell the collection in every country throughout the world. Work very hard, stay humble, and it will happen. You know, you will find your place in the world. And the harder that you are on yourself sometimes, you lose sight of what that is, because you're concentrating so much on what you don't have instead of all of the wonderful things that you're so lucky to have and all of the resources that you have around you, possible mentors you have around you, experiences you're about to have tomorrow and will have 5 years from now. And I think if you keep that sort of perspective on the world, you will find your way.